In Kansas, already there's an enormous movement for what they would call pro-life, what the pro-choice people would call an anti-abortion movement. Now, you remember, of course, Dr. Tiller, who was an abortion provider in Kansas, was shot and killed in Kansas from anti-abortion forces. Now, that doesn't mean to say that all the people who are pro-life in Kansas agree with that. Obviously, most of them are outraged by that, but there are some who think that, hey, you know what, that's how it goes. In fact, I'll quote you one of those in a second. Now, there's an anti-abortion activist in Kansas who is trying to intimidate the person who might replace Dr. Tiller. There is a person who's looking to buy his equipment and provide abortions because they would be among the very, very few in Kansas who do. They want to provide that service. It's a legal service, right? And they get letters like this from activists, quote, "Thousands of people will know your habits and routines. They know where you shop, who your friends are, what you drive, where you live. You will be checking under your car every day because maybe today's the day someone places an explosive under it." Now, they wouldn't want to intimidate anybody, would they? Troy Newman is with Operation Rescue, and they were trying to intimidate the local prosecutors into pressing forward with a case against Dr. George Tiller when he was alive. Now, even though they're Republicans and pro-life, etc., those prosecutors said, look, these are trumped-up charges. We're not going to go forward. And one of them was Nola Fulston. Troy Newman said, if Nola Fulston had done her job with George Tiller, he would still be alive today. Do you understand how abhorrent that is? What they're saying is, if you just prosecuted him and put him in jail for no reason, as we told you to, if you had fixed the law to make sure that we put that guy in prison and took away his freedom, we wouldn't have had to shoot him. It's on you for not imprisoning him unjustly. And by the way, the shooter, actually, Scott Roeder, did have connections to Operation Rescue. So now, these are the activists, and obviously some of them are incredibly heinous, as you can tell from the quotes. But meanwhile, there are a lot of groups who are trying to turn the politicians more pro-life. Now, you have to understand, the Republicans dominate in Kansas, and all those Republicans are pro-life. Almost all of them are, right? But not good enough for some of these groups. So, in a recent primary, the Koch brothers, the group that is for against tax increase for the rich under any circumstances, and anti-abortion groups poured in $3 to $8 million into a random primary in Kansas. In fact, this has taken on the name the Kansas coup. Why? 45 new members in the House. It's a 36% turnover. That's amazing. 13 new members, and that's a 32% turnover. The great majority of those are right-wing radical Republicans taking out other already deeply conservative, deeply pro-life Republicans, because Kansas is not extreme enough. So they say that this will be a new utopia for conservatives. They're going to, of course, do two things. One is drive taxes all the way down for the rich and for corporations. Sam Brownback already wants to do that. He's the governor of Kansas. Some are starting to call it Brownbackistan, partly because of the second part, the social issues, what we've been talking about, abortion. So they want to drive the remaining abortion providers out of Kansas so that there are none left. Legal, illegal, what the Supreme Court said in Roe v. Wade, who cares? You do it by any means necessary. In fact, there's almost no providers left in Kansas because Dr. George Tiller was the main provider. When a reporter talked to Scott Roeder, the man who killed Dr. Tiller, about this issue, Scott Roeder said, quote, "I stopped abortion in Wichita." Now the thing is, that's not quite true. It was almost true. But now these new breed of radical Republicans are trying to pass laws, will pass laws, have promised to pass laws to finish the mission that Scott Roeder started. That's what's happening in Kansas. By the way, some of those ousted Republicans went to talk to a convention of state legislators, and they said, you guys have no idea what these Koch brothers are up to. One of them said they are the worst citizens. Now, obviously, they got targeted, but so that they obviously have a different perspective on it. But what they were trying to warn everybody is, look, being an incredibly right-wing Republican doesn't cut it anymore. If you're not a radical like these guys, if you don't want to ignore the laws, if you don't want to cut taxes to 0% for rich and corporations, they're going to come for you. They're buying our government, and they're trying this operation in Kansas as their test tube to see how extreme they can get. This is the Kansas coup, and it's coming all across the country. Well, if we let these guys simply buy our elections, of course they're going to do it. Our system is sick, man.